It's been a while since my last video, so I thought I'd show a couple of my newest acquisitions, starting off this time with the Landmaster altimeter, the SBCN003. Pretty impressive watch. You've seen a number of Landmasters so far, and the difference in this one is the fact that it has a barometer. A pretty interesting little feature, which also assists in ascertaining your altitude, as you can see in this beautiful bezel. The watch is fully made out of titanium and has the distinctive grayness of titanium. It's pretty similar, I guess you could say, in appearance to the typical SBCW001 Landmaster. It has the exact same alloy, and this gives it a pretty rugged look, really. Although it's a very busy dial, it's also a very elegant watch. Now, I've had a couple of days to study the manual, and I had to because the watch wasn't originally set up well. The thing with those quartz engines is that you need, every time you replace the battery, you need to also do an internal reset of the internal circuitry, and this one the previous owner hadn't done so. He just replaced the battery, although it's clearly stated in the battery how to do the procedure. For some reason he neglected to, and as a result the barometer wouldn't work. So I replaced the battery, and let's take a look at this barometer function right now. There are two barometer hands, the red one and this one on the subdial. The subdial measures from 1 to 10, while the red one is measuring the larger numbers as they are in the inner chapter ring. So right now the red hand, the barometer hand 1, is indicated 1000 millimeters, while the smaller subdial indicates 3. So we have an atmospheric pressure of 1003 millimeters of mercury. The other little nifty feature is this here. I guess you could call it, I don't know, a half dial of sorts, with this here hand with the yellow tip. This demonstrates the wider picture, the big picture, and you can get a grasp of what the weather is going to be like in the immediate time frame, because it keeps track of the changes in the atmospheric pressure, and it gives you a weather prognosis. This one here, the plus sign and the minus sign, the closer this hand is to the plus sign, it means that the weather is going to improve, and the closer it is to the minus sign, it means that the weather is going to get worse. That's basically the function there. And if you need to know your altitude, you'd have first to adjust it to current atmospheric pressure, and you'll do that by moving the bezel. The bezel is unidirectional, it moves both ways. You need to move it so that it lines up to about 10 and 13 millimeters. Obviously you cannot get an exact fix on that, but that's just about it. And once you do that against a known altitude, you just have to check where the red tip is. So if my altitude meter had been set against a known altimeter, then this would be starting from 500 meters here on the bezel, 4, 3, 2, about 100 meters height. And obviously as you go higher, the atmospheric pressure is going to start dropping, and your altimeter is going to be showing higher values here. This of course provided that we don't have a very large decrease or increase in the atmospheric pressure. Normally the atmospheric pressure won't get really all that different, but you should keep track of it should you ever use it to see your altimeter while trekking up a mountain. Still, it is a pretty nifty feature. Obviously the weather forecast is much more exciting and practical to use. Now the other subdials, this here subdial is obviously the second-hand marker, and there's also the 12 to 24 hour index, so that you know whether it's 5 and 20 or 17 and 20. Right now we are looking closer to the 18 mark, so it's 17 and 20. All in all, the build quality is very good. Especially of some interest is this here Caseback, which has been decorated with a classical Landmaster logo, also mentioning the summiter. Sign, and some room for personal data. Hopefully it hasn't been used. What? We caught this one when the barometric measurement was made, and as you saw, we had a slight drop, or I should say pretty large drop in atmospheric pressure, and this immediately signifies that the weather is going to get quite worse quite soon. And I think this is in line with the weather forecast currently, because it reads something like it's going to start raining in 2 or 3 hours. So this gives you pretty accurate indication of what the weather is going to be in a few short hours from now. That's very useful. Or at least, as a friend of mine said, at least this is of some use versus, the diving bezels if you're out on land. So that's quite fitting to have a Landmaster with a very useful feature when you are on land. Obviously this is made for an earlier time when we didn't have cell phones and stuff like that. A cell phone obviously can do all this, and you can get pretty accurate weather forecast as well, but still it remains pretty cool. This was a very expensive watch initially. It retailed back in 1998 for 130,000 yen. To put this into perspective, a simple tuna cost 60,000 yen, and the golden tuna cost back then 133,000 yen. So that's comparable price to a golden tuna. That was pretty expensive watch. Bracelet, it's nice. It has a lot of individual links. It's very well made. And there's also a ratcheting clasp, which works, the usual way. You just pull this little thing here and you pull to open it, and you close it back in. These watches have seen a resurgence lately. They weren't at all known in the West since they were JDM models, mostly, at least the summiter was, if I'm not mistaken. the simpler Landmaster, the SBCN003, and the one I reviewed in a different video, did come and were available on the western side of the civilization, but this one I think wasn't really ever sold outside Japan, at least not officially. It's a very interesting watch. This titanium alloy, it retains the grayness that titanium has, but it must be hardened to some extent, because I'm hard pressed to find any marks on that. And this was a watch that was used. It wasn't something that, stood on a drawer somewhere. It was used. There were some marks on the bracelet when I received it, but you can very easily brush away marks on untreated titanium with a simple fiberglass pen to practically make it look new again, even the clasp. There are some deeper marks that need a lot of brushing to get rid of, and I don't intend to be hard on my watches, so I just did a simple light polish on the surface, and it looks pretty good despite its age. This watch was made 1997, May 1997, as the serial number indicates. Some scratches on the Caseback, but overall the case has retained a very decent appearance. The crystal, sapphire crystal, looks spotless. It's slightly recessed, not much. And of course the bezel has this very interesting mix of brushed and polished titanium look. You can turn it either way. And that subdial, I forgot about it, is the alarm subdial. You can also set it to a different time zone. This is also of some use if you're traveling. You can have it on your local time zone and just change the time only. And there is a date window. Pretty busy dial, but it also serves a function. And it's pretty cool to see, the atmospheric pressure indicators change every once in a while. They do measurement every 10 minutes, but by the press of this button you can switch that to take a measurement every 15 seconds. And there's also a demo version, but we were lucky enough to catch this while it was rotating, so I won't go to that. Pretty complicated watch to operate, but once you get the hang of it, it's something completely different from your average Landmaster series. Right, let's do a cutaway for a wrist shot. And here it is on my 18.5 centimeter wrist. It's not too large a watch. I was expecting something larger. This is about 41 millimeters, not including the crown. Lug size is 20 millimeters, and it wears, it wears well. Lugs are curved, so it hugs the wrist quite well. It's not that long. It's a pretty easy watch to wear. There is this splash of color with the red and the yellow, which goes down well. You can see that this is a quality item. It also serves a function. Against the backdrop, you can see my Seiko GMT World Time table clock, another recent addition. So there you have it, folks. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more videos to come soon.